The police who went inside said room to room were stacked with guns. So the question is, what was the owner doing with them?
Federal agents thought they were hitting a standard drug house in 2025, but what they found was a factory of chaos. It's not just about the bags of powder anymore. It's about the 1,000 guns stacked on the sidewalk.
1,000 guns, rifles, and pistols were stacked on the street and across the sidewalk.
You won't believe how this invisible network operated right under our noses for years. Most people are safe in their beds while this command center planned a small war. The crazy part is how normal it all looked from the outside before the FBI finally pulled back the curtain on this massive cartel discovery. Suburban war zone. The police who went inside said room to room were stacked with guns. So the question is, what was the owner doing with them? Federal agents kicked down the door of a quiet home in Centralia, Washington, expecting a standard drug bust. But what they found inside froze them in their tracks. It wasn't just piles of cash or bags of powder. It was an entire arsenal. We're talking about assault rifles, heavy machinery, and enough firepower to start a small war, all hidden in a neighborhood where kids ride bikes outside. More than 1,000 guns, rifles, and pistols were stacked on the street and across the sidewalk. You never know what goes on behind these gates. It's a lot of weapons. But here's the catch. This wasn't a one-off stash. It's part of a massive invisible network that's been operating right under our noses for years. A factory of chaos. On the early morning of October 28, 2025, the fog still clung to the streets of western Washington. Most people were still asleep, safe in their beds. But outside a specific property in Centralia, silence was about to break. Heavily armed teams from Homeland Security, the DEA, and local police moved into position. They'd been watching this place for months. They knew something was wrong, but what they found when they finally breached the door was beyond their worst nightmares. This wasn't just a house, it was a command center. Inside, agents found a staggering amount of contraband. Officers then searched his home and found guns, more than a pound of methamphetamine, 1,000 fentanyl pills, as well as ingredients in a pill press that can make thousands of pills an hour. We're talking about roughly 25 kilograms of suspected fentanyl powder and more than 90,000 fentanyl pills. That's enough poison to wipe out a stadium full of people. But here's the catch. It wasn't just the drugs that made the agents sweat. It was the guns. Scattered throughout the property were 24 firearms. These weren't just old pistols for protection. The inventory included assault-style rifles and high-capacity weapons designed for one thing: sustained combat. It was a weapons factory in all but name, a hub used to arm a transnational criminal organization that had set up shop right in the middle of American suburbia. And get this raid was just one part of a massive sweep across western Washington from Linwood to Sammamish. Law enforcement hit 12 different locations simultaneously. They arrested 10 people, including 25-year-old Luis Humberto Lamos Guzman and 44-year-old Eduardo Villanueva. These guys weren't low-level street dealers. They were key players in a conspiracy that linked narcotics, firearms, and organized crime across multiple counties. The scary part is how normal it all looked from the outside. One suspect, 30-year-old Jose Isabel Sandoval Zuniga, was caught driving his car like any other commuter. But inside his vehicle, police found 1.6 kilograms of fentanyl. What started as a traffic stop ended with all of these guns and prescription pills off the streets. This is what police found after randomly running the plates on a car parked outside a bar. A search of his home revealed even more drugs and a loaded .45 caliber semi-automatic pistol. It's a stark reminder that this network was mobile, armed, and operating in plain sight. Authorities called this Operation Take Back America. It sounds like a movie title, but the stakes were very real. The goal was to dismantle a cartel network that had embedded itself deep within U.S. communities. They recovered $40,000 in cash, which might sound like a lot, but in the world of cartel finance, that's just pocket change. The real value was in the hardware and the drugs. Basically, this operation revealed a terrifying truth. The cartels aren't just at the border, they're here. They're trafficking firearms alongside heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine, and they're doing it with an efficiency that rivals major corporations. They've got supply chains, logistics managers, and enforcers. And now they've got stockpiles of weapons sitting in American neighborhoods ready to be used or shipped south to fuel the violence in Mexico. But finding the stash was only the beginning of the story. The investigation uncovered that these weapons were likely destined for a much darker purpose than just protecting a drug house. They're trying to figure out exactly what this person or this organization was doing with the weapons. They asked if these were being sold to gangs or somebody else, or if this was terror-related. All of that is still under investigation. At this point, they're not certain. The specific types of rifles found suggest they were being prepped for conflict. This discovery in Washington was a wake-up call. It showed that the flow of illegal goods isn't a one-way street. Drugs come north, but guns go south. And the people facilitating this trade are often living right next door. The authorities had to use every tool in their box. SWAT teams from Seattle and Snohomish County worked alongside specialized units from the Washington State Patrol. Even the IRS got involved to track the money. It was a total team effort to take down a beast that had grown too big to ignore. But the trail of steel didn't end in the Pacific Northwest. Iron pipeline exposed. But the weapons in the West were just one part of a much bigger machine. As the dust settled in Washington, investigators realized this wasn't an isolated incident. The trail of guns stretched all the way to the other side of the country, revealing a pipeline of steel and fire that nobody saw coming. The weapons found in Washington were just the tip of the iceberg. The machine gun maker. While agents were counting rifles in Washington, another drama was unfolding on the streets of New York City. It turns out the demand for illegal firepower is so high that traffickers are building specialized pipelines to move guns across the country. And one of these pipelines led straight to a man named David Morris. On May 9, 2025, federal and city authorities announced the arrest of 31-year-old Morris. They accused him of moving 47 firearms and massive amounts of ammunition from Georgia all the way up to Lower Manhattan. But here's the deal. He wasn't just selling handguns to street thugs. He was boasting about something much more dangerous. As you can see, the weapons are of all makes and calibers and models, and there's over 1,000. This is a big stash. It's beyond comprehension. During a weeks-long undercover sting, Morris allegedly sold 17 guns to officers who were posing as buyers. He met them near the waterfront in Lower Manhattan, acting like he was just making a delivery. But in his conversations, he dropped a bombshell. He claimed he had access to machine gun conversion kits. For those who don't know, these are small devices, sometimes called switches, that can turn a regular semi-automatic pistol into a fully automatic machine gun. With one of these tiny pieces of metal or plastic, a handgun can empty an entire magazine in the blink of an eye. It turns a defensive weapon into a tool for a massacre. And Morris said he'd been in the gun trade for nearly a decade. The crazy part is the logistics. Morris allegedly transported these weapons from Georgia, driving them up the East Coast. This route's often called the Iron Pipeline. It's a known corridor where guns from states with looser laws travel to states with stricter ones, but usually it's small-time crooks. Morris was moving volume. When authorities finally took him down, they displayed over 200 high-powered firearms seized in Georgia as part of the broader investigation. The table was covered in steel. There were assault rifles, squad automatic weapons, and even a .50 caliber machine gun. Imagine that, a .50 caliber machine gun, the kind used to take out vehicles just sitting in a stash house waiting for a buyer. The total value of the cash seized was over $250,000. Police raided that home Tuesday and says the cash was behind this wall in the attic, packed in orange Home Depot buckets, 150 grand in each bucket. A loaded Tech-9 firearm was also taken from the home, but the cost to public safety would have been immeasurable. A routine inspection in Texas was about to reveal a historic secret. Border supply chain. While one pipeline was closing, another was moving steel across the southern border. Investigators say this case exposes a growing stream of illegal weapons that flows into major cities and then often trickles down to the cartels. See, the cartels love American guns. They use the profits from selling methamphetamine and fentanyl to buy them. They rely on people like Morris or networks of straw purchasers to buy guns legally in the U.S. and then smuggle them. Once those guns cross the border, they're often modified for combat. Morris didn't just stick to guns, though. He was also allegedly dabbling in cocaine. On April 18th, he reportedly handed a sample of coke to an undercover officer. It was a classic case of diversifying the portfolio. Drugs and guns go together like peanut butter and jelly in the underworld. Federal agents explained that this case was part of an ongoing effort to shut down these channels before the weapons reached the streets. They arrested 14 other people in connection with the ring. 9 of them were in the country illegally, while the rest were U.S. citizens. It shows that this is a transnational problem that relies on help from both sides of the law. Morris is now facing serious time: unlicensed dealing of firearms, firearms trafficking, and using a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking. That last one carries a mandatory minimum of 5 years and could put him away for life. But while the FBI was busy shutting down the Georgia to New York pipeline, an even bigger shipment was trying to sneak through the front door of the country. Down in Texas, a routine inspection was about to turn into a historic seizure. The family business. At the Laredo border crossing in Texas, thousands of trucks pass through every single day. It's a river of commerce. But on one particular day, Customs and Border Protection officers noticed something off about 2 tractor trailers attempting to cross the bridge. It looked like a normal shipment. The paperwork seemed fine. The drivers, 41-year-old Arlo Ramirez Cortez and his son Edgar Ramirez Diaz, looked legitimate. One was a lawful permanent resident, the other a U.S. citizen. They were the perfect decoys, but the agents had a hunch, or maybe a scanner picked up an anomaly. They pulled the rigs over for a secondary inspection. What they found inside the trailers was an engineering masterpiece of deception. The walls of the trailers had been modified. There were secret compartments built into the frame, hidden so well that you could tap on them and hear nothing but solid wood. But when they pried them open, the agents found an arsenal. Nearly 400 firearms and thousands of rounds of ammunition were stacked inside. Police have discovered a case of machine guns and handguns along with $20 million worth of drugs. Detectives say the trailer was allegedly set up as a mobile drug lab. This wasn't a collection for a gun show, it was a resupply shipment for an army. The mix of rifles and ammo suggested it was heading straight to a Mexican cartel. And that's what most people don't realize. We hear about drugs coming in, but we rarely see the rivers of steel flowing out. Do you think we'll ever be able to stop these secret tunnels from entering our neighborhoods? It's a scary thought that's worth discussing below. Please like and subscribe for more updates.